All right. Hi, everyone. So today we have Dr. Margaret Meloni and myself talking about the relationship between mindfulness and compassion. Now, some viewers have come across both concepts of mindfulness and compassion, but we want to talk about the relationship between the two and how one helps the other and actually complements the other as well. And together, the two uh, approaches of being a mindful leader and a compassionate leader create the most highly effective approach to leadership in today's society, to today's organizations.
Yes, it's true. It's that integration is really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, many viewers already know that my focus has been on mindfulness, and for our 6-week program, I'll be kind of covering the mindfulness aspect, and uh, Dr. Margaret will focus on compassion, and her PhD is in Buddhist studies, and so she's the expert in that area. Uh, but we want to talk about the relationship. So mindfulness is the art of presence, to be aware, to be present to ourselves, to our own thoughts and emotions, as well as becoming more aware of others' uh, thoughts. Well, not really thoughts because you can't read minds, but we can become aware of other people's emotions and behaviors. And then from that awareness, there is a sense of a deeper understanding of why someone may be behaving a certain way or feeling
Mhm.
a certain way. And that's where empathy comes in. And in one of your videos, Margaret, you talk about empathy is not enough. And absolutely, that's the case because empathy just gets you to get the understanding of, okay, someone's feeling a certain way. So that's the first step. But then as a
Mhm.
leader, how can someone actually do something about it? Once you know someone is feeling a certain way or getting deeper into understanding the root causes of their suffering or the root causes of their irrational behavior or disengagement, whatever it is that is causing a problem or a challenge in the work environment or in the project team. It's then okay. So as a leader, I can feel this person now. We can do something about it. So which is the compassion side, is taking action. And
Right.
compassion, in our video on the OWL framework, which is the awareness, understanding, leadership, compassion actually falls more in the leadership component of the OWL framework because it's actually taking action, effective action to make things better, um, to increase engagement or start working on some kind of outcome. The awareness
Absolutely.
side of it, which is at the very
Mhm.
beginning, which is cultivation of mindfulness, is to really get a sense of what's going on, leads to that empathy, and then that empathy leads to compassion. So this is I guess on the high level, that's the relationship between the mindfulness leading to compassionate leadership. Um, in terms of how we're cultivating these two concepts, Margaret, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think these are, I mean, there's some research being done where through awareness, naturally we cultivate empathy and compassion. And then through focusing on that compassionate element, which is more around, and this is interesting because for me, presence is pure awareness, whereas compassion has this sense of heart element, like care, like it's kind of more heart focused, whereas
Mhm.
mindfulness is just awareness. It's just like sensing the environment, sensing the situation, sensing other people, and it's almost like kind of moving more towards the heart area. Is that the case? Do you sense that the compassion element is really going more deeper into not just about action, but also kind of feeling how we can uh, care and make a difference. So that's what I wanted to kind of that's I guess that's my question.
Yes. Okay, so this is what I will say. Compassion, actually, I think of it as requiring some bravery, especially in a leadership situation. Well, in a lot of situations, but right now, you and I are talking about leadership. And in a leadership scenario, the reason I say that compassion requires some bravery is because, again, it's requiring you to do something, not just to know something, right? I bet a lot of us have worked for people who have known that something was upsetting to us as employees or team members, right? So that, and if something is upsetting to us, then we can say that that's a form of suffering. So I think we've all worked for someone that has noticed that something is causing us upset or suffering. And now maybe the next step they took was maybe to just go in their office and close the door, or in this world of meeting virtually, of just changing the topic or signing off or something, right?
Mm.
Or saying the ever popular, well, suck it up. This is, that's a phrase people use frequently, oh, just suck it up. Oh, you're just going to have to deal with it. You know, um, we're not being paid to coddle you, things like that. These are the things that people who don't take the brave action, these are the things they say. And the reason I say bravery is because I think sometimes it might be emotionally easier in the moment to ignore the problems and the upset and the suffering. It may haunt you later. It depends. Some people have regrets. They look back and they think, oh, I realized what I could have done differently, what I wished I had done differently.
Yeah.
But in that moment, again, that's that bravery of looking and seeing my team members are upset, or a team member is upset, or this difficult thing has happened, and I could let them just kind of muddle through this on their own, or I could take some kind of action.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is bravery. But yes, to your point, is it heart-centered? It is heart-centered because it comes from that caring, right? So it's that noticing, right? The mindfulness is the noticing. So I like to say we can't have compassion without mindfulness, because you have to be aware, you have to know, which means you have to see things, which means you have to be in the present with someone. And then empathy is important, even though I say, oh, it's not enough, but it's important
Yeah.
because we have to be able to recognize those feelings. And then the third step is that action. And we have to bravely take the action. We have to want to take the action.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
that heart part. That's where the heart is. That's the heart place.
And I love what you said about bravery, which is, I say courage, but it's the same thing, having courage to
Yes.
actually take the action, because it's facing some discomfort that arises from that. A lot of leaders, it's and with I think the intention obviously is to get a positive outcome, but unfortunately a lot of leaders turn away from the discomfort that they may experience when uh they notice the suffering. So there is empathy, you notice, but then they don't know how to deal with it, so they either just turn away, just say, as you said, just say, look, suck it up, get it,
Mm-hmm.
not here to cuddle you or make you
Yeah.
feel better. But unfortunately, they might even call tough love, but no, I think it requires courage to go there and actually do something about it, because it is, the leader has to face a discomfort uh of this kind of a situation where someone is having a difficult time, um
Yes.
and it's almost stepping into courage and responsibility to take action. So it's all more now moving truly in
Mm-hmm.
the leadership space. It's like, okay, noticing, awareness, sensing, empathy, up to empathy. It's just really understanding, really, and then we're
Yes.
moving into the leadership space where, okay, it is as it is. I can feel this person's pain or why they're behaving in a certain way. Now we're moving into, okay, let's take some action. What are the most effective action? And some of the actions that the leader may need to take may actually be very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I want to interject that sometimes as a leader, I might be the one causing the pain.
Exactly.
Not on purpose, I hope, but
Yeah.
okay, not like I'm sitting at my desk thinking like, ooh, how can I make people suffer today? Like, I don't think that person is going to even be listening and watching us right now. And if you are, please come to our class. But I think that it's that sometimes I know I'm going to have to come and say to my team something that they're not going to like.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have cutbacks, or we're going on mandatory overtime, or we're freezing vacations until we meet this goal, or bonuses are on hold, or, you can no longer work on a flexible schedule from home whenever you feel like it. Whatever it is, sometimes my role as a leader is to be the the bringer, the bearer of the news that's leading to the suffering.
Yeah.
And now I may want to just make that announcement and run away. Shh. Okay.
Yeah.
You all have to be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Shh, bye.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned about bringing the bad news, but where compassion and mindfulness actually combine in this situation is actually being with the discomfort of the emotions that are arising both within the self and other people. Being with it,
Mm-hmm.
being able to stay
Yes.
in that discomfort requires both courage, but also self-compassion and compassion for the others. There's that self-compassion element is really important here, is because sometimes bearing bad news and making those difficult situations may arise. The leader may face some kind of shame or guilt or that arises from that decision, right? It's kind of like I'm making people suffer, and just facing that, like being authentic
Right.
to face the reality that actually what the news or the decision I'm making is going to make others suffer, and it's going to make me feel bad, and to be in holding space for that, for one's own emotions and other people's emotions, and being able to
Mm-hmm.
feel with the other people. So as you said, okay, instead of kind of giving the news and then dashing out, is just staying with the people and saying, look, I know how much this is going to um impact you, and I can feel your pain, and just being in that space, like, it's like, instead of saying, okay, I've got to go now, it's like, okay, I'm here with you, and
Yes.
it was a tough decision, but I'm here with you throughout this whole process or whatever we're going through, and we're gonna do whatever we can to bring the best outcome for all of us and the organization.
Exactly.
And then that requires both courage. It requires, I would also say, forgiveness, and forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and in self-compassion, self-forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, a lot of times leaders have to bring a sense of forgiveness. There was another time you mentioned about not having taken an action and later regretting about it and saying, oh, I should have done this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, leaders have to bring forgiveness. Leaders are not perfect human beings. They can make mistakes. We can, like, leaders make mistakes because they're human beings, and that's the thing.
All the time.
And just bringing
All the
bringing
time.
forgiveness, because if we don't bring that forgiveness, then a lot of times people get stuck as well in past decisions and regret and this negativity, which doesn't help leaders kind of move forward and actually make things better.
It's
So
true.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
not.
very appreciative of your point about self-compassion, because so like in that moment, and I'll just stick with the example of I have to make an announcement that everyone's going to hate, right? I'm dreading it. I know it's coming. I know I'm dreading it. So I know I'm uncomfortable, right? I'm making this announcement to people and I'm so uncomfortable. And I think that, again, mindfulness means being aware of in that moment, I am so uncomfortable. And maybe in that moment, I might feel like everyone hates me. I'm a horrible leader. I have to say this awful thing. I'm making everyone unhappy. And so it's okay to feel that and to be mindful of it. And then, like you said, to extend yourself self-compassion and just realize like this moment where I have to make this, ugly announcement, this is not going to last forever. It's not going to last forever. And I'm going to do this. And then, like you said, I'm going to help my team through it. And helping a team through it, it might mean letting them, push back, yell, scream, within professional guidelines. It doesn't mean you have to say, okay, go ahead, verbally abuse me, right? But to allow them to professionally express their upset and anger. And then, sometimes in that situation, compassion might also mean knowing when it's time to leave them alone because they need to say things that you don't need to hear, and acknowledging that, and not getting so wrapped up in my own, I don't want them talking about me behind my back, or they better not be saying ugly things when I leave. Yeah. Like, just let them do it if that's what needs to happen within, I'll say reasonable guidelines.
Absolutely. And all those thoughts and emotions can arise both in terms of being with people's kind of expressing their frustration or anger. The leader, if they begin to use the mindfulness tool, the mindfulness and compassion tool, it's right, okay, I'm creating space for this person to express themselves. I am also creating space for myself to feel what I'm feeling. So almost the leader is expanding beyond their own mind and body to just allow things to be as they are, which is the essence of mindfulness practice. Is okay, these people are angry. Just let this space for them to express their anger. Let me feel the discomfort of these emotions and thoughts that are arising. And what you mentioned about, okay, at some point you might have to, okay, say, now I need to go, but then all these thoughts that are arising, what are they saying behind my back? All that uncertainty, all those thoughts that may be kind of circulating, the leaders again creating space for those thoughts to arise and pass away, which is exactly what mindfulness is. Okay, all these discomfort, all these emotions, all these thoughts are being allowed to arise and pass without the leader being overwhelmed by the thoughts and emotions they're experiencing. Margaret, I sense we don't talk about these things very much when it comes to leadership, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because people don't realize leaders are human beings, and they do experience discomfort of having all these sorts of thoughts and emotions circulating, but it's like they're trying to look tough and be like a rock solid leader that, it's just like almost masking the humanity that's there, where I think in a lot of leadership programs we don't talk about leaders are humans, and they have the same challenges everybody else has, but they probably even more, because they have to make tough decisions in organizations that really impact people and the organization and themselves and everything, that just being impacted while still being a human being.
It's true. So I'm going to say the flip side of a leader saying to a group of people, well, suck it up. The flip side to that is if in some cultures, some corporate cultures, the flip side is if a leader expresses that part of their job is difficult, the return comment sometimes from people not in leadership roles are, well, that's what you get paid the big bucks for, or that's why you have all those perks. And yes, of course, in many leadership roles, there is a lot of, financial reward and other benefits. Absolutely. But I think on either side, to say suck it up, or that's where you get paid the big bucks, that glosses over the humanity of all of us in all of our roles. And we don't want to, I don't believe in leadership programs that create a hollow shell of a person. I'm envisioning like somebody walking around like in a coat of armor that's learned all the right things to say in conflict and all the right ways to negotiate, but it has to cover up their humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going back to a multitude of uh I guess what we call is the way of being, in terms of ontological kind of perspective. And I do some ontological coaching around, cultivating courage and awareness and compassion,
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, and all of these things. It's less about the behavior. Like, there's a lot of behavioral leadership programs. You do this to get this outcome. You say this to get that
Right.
outcome. Like, everything's very at surface level. Whereas what we
Very
talk
transactional.
very transactional. Whereas what
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about is going to the depths of one's being and just cultivating that inner self that then manifests in better behaviors, better kind of outcomes. But the behaviors are not kind of, it's not at that surface level. It's coming at a much deeper level. The behaviors are
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of much deeper cultivation of awareness, of compassion, of courage. And when those are cultivated within, then the behaviors that arise are both more authentic and natural, and effective. So effective and natural. They're not just uh, surface level ways of behaving. Like, okay, this is. So that's what I've sensed. It's like a lot of things talk about. Okay, this is how you say things. This is what you do to get X outcome. And a lot of times that kind of behavior is, first of all, not authentic to the leader. It's like just something they've learned to do to get some outcome. It's not authentic to them. And at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, it's not effective because it's not authentic. It's like everything just kind of is interconnected. If it's not authentic, it's generally not effective.
Yeah,
So
it doesn't come from the core.
that's right.
I'm remembering a vice president once who used to kind of walk through. A group of us sat in like an open seating situation. We called it a bullpen. And there's a bunch of us. And so he'd kind of walk through the room. And when I was newer and I would observe him walk through the room, and he'd walk through, and he was very friendly ish, in demeanor anyways. And then he'd walk through and call out, "Oh, great. Glad to see you all working. Thanks so much for everything you do. You're all working so hard." And, the first time I was like, wow, wasn't that so great? But then I started noticing that pretty much every time he came through, he kind of said something like that. I mean, which is better than being a jerk and saying, like, get to work. However, I began to realize it seemed like he was working off a script. And I think he was responding to the fact that, lack of recognition and appreciation is bad for morale. But I never heard him say, and here's what finally, where I finally got it. One day I realized, I thought, oh, he's never saying anything really specific.
Mm, mm.
He's generally saying, great job, appreciate you, you, the masses, you, which that's okay. But it never was like, the work you did last week on project X was amazing, or thank you for your delivery of project Y. It was never very specific. And so I began to treat it as background noise. It was coming from a lesson in a class, or,
Yeah,
a leadership development, but it wasn't coming from a core. It
that's
wasn't
right.
coming from his core.
It wasn't coming from awareness. It wasn't coming from the heart. It was coming from the mind, scripted some kind of, idea, theory that, yes, if you appreciate and say appreciative things, then you get X outcome. People are more engaged.
Exactly.
And that's the
Exactly.
level,
People
yeah.
will be happy and they'll keep working hard if you're nice to them.
That's right. And that's that. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we see that a lot in leadership education. It's like, do X, you get Y. And then when they don't get Y, it's like, hang on, I applied X. Why am I not getting Y? And they get confused because they don't recognize that they're just stuck in that inauthentic behavioral uh,
Mm-hmm.
level, and they haven't gone deeper, which is harder, of course, going deeper and cultivate
Sure.
awareness and compassion and courage and presence is more. It takes more time. But it's the only way to have high levels of effectiveness uh,
Mm-hmm.
in leadership. Uh, so I'm glad that we talked about this thing, and it's sensitive. It's a sensitive topic to talk about, going deeper and, first of all, uh,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing, yes, leaders are human, but then if they are to be effective, cultivating uh, their ways of being, going deeper and working from within themselves to have more authentic expression. Um, for instance, that leader that you mentioned, Margaret, that was just going off a script, probably they went to some leadership education or training and learned that. If, for instance, they learn about awareness, that, go and tune into your people, see what they're actually doing, and appreciate it from a deeper perspective about the work, the kind of work they're doing, just noting the kinds of things they're doing, learning more about them, sensing their contribution, sensing their presence as human beings and as individuals and teams that are actually making a contribution to the project, to the organization, and really connecting with that. And when that leader does that, then there's an authentic expression of there's this sense of gratitude. The gratitude comes more authentically rather than fabricated from a script, which is comes like, it just, after a while, the first time they say it may be great, but then it comes across as very inauthentic eventually, because it's just a behavioral, it's coming from a very mental, behavioral, transactional kind of state rather than a deeper transformational state.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Margaret, for today's session on mindfulness and compassion, the relationship, and all the other kind of elements that are really contributing to mindful and compassionate leadership, including courage and forgiveness. I think these are really important to note, that it's not just about one thing, but one thing leads to all these aspects, like awareness and compassion, mindfulness and compassion leads to being able to being with discomfort, being able to have self-compassion, self-forgiveness, forgiveness towards others, forgiveness towards situations as well. So all of these things are kind of emanating from that cultivation of awareness, mindfulness, and presence, as well as compassion, one thing, which is the leadership element of going and actually making a difference. And then all the other elements are more naturally coming to being. So I think that's probably good enough for our session today.
I think it's great.
Not overwhelming our listeners and our viewers with too much information, but I think there's enough food for thought and for our viewers to kind of see the power of mindfulness and compassion. And as viewers know, we are both offering this 6-week program to cultivate both mindfulness and compassion, and we hope that we could work with many leaders and help them cultivate this and apply it in their workplace, and we're there to support them throughout that period and beyond. So with that, I'd like to thank you for tuning in today, Mark, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you very soon, and to continue our conversations around mindful and compassionate leadership and delivering this program to our leaders.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.